my subject is very familiar to all of you. We here in Bhujal Abhiyan and this group of organizers like CE and Aquadam, we have two sets of people. On one side, there is expert people, who are supposed to be the international and national level of hydrogeologists. And other side, the lay people, who don't understand, or they are somebody, who rather, have a very little knowledge about the subject. But we are the people who are called as a karyakarta. Satranji uchalnare karyakarta. No? So, I belong to that kind of a category. So, whenever you are listening to me, listen as if, a layman is speaking on the subject. So, I'm not calling myself an expert, but whatever I have understood later, I am putting forth before you, maybe for a discussion. Now, the subject is conservation and recharge strategies, urban EMERA, managed aquifer recharge. I want to explain this. Until 5-10 years back, there was nothing like, managed recharge or managed aquifer recharge. Everything was considered as a natural recharge. Whatever happens in a rainfall, takes place and groundwater gets recharged, because of the natural ways. Now, the era has come of what you call as a managed recharge. This particular word, managed recharge, is more relevant in the urban context. The reason is, our own human evolution and usage of water. As somebody said earlier, that the human population is growing up in exponential kind of a terms. So this is the way, that is increasing the demand for the water also. If you remember, once upon a time, the drawing of groundwater, was done by such kind of a manual method, one bucket at a time. This was the kind of a norm. Then for agriculture, it went up to this kind of a situation where oxen are used, for pulling the water or drawing the water from the wells. Quantity increased. Then came this machine. Now this machine is a rig, which is, I think, one of the easiest solution for drawing water. Wherever you want a groundwater to be extracted, you call the rig, they'll put a hole into the groundwater, maybe 140 feet, 200 feet or 300 feet, whatever, their bill, the bill of the rigs goes up if you try to hit deeper and deeper, because the rate is calculated by number of feet required. If you have a 100 feet bore well, charges are less. But if you have 300 feet, charges are more. So obviously the rig people are going to increase their bill, and they are the people who will encourage you or will tell you that, you should go deeper and deeper and see what's happened later on. The borewell is an easy solution for water. The moment you have a borewell and a motor pump on it, you will have a continuous stream of water. Even on a what you call 2-acre land, you will find, if you go to the farm sector, you will find that 5 to 6 borewells are there on just 2 acres of land. If you have something like 5 hectares, then you will have 10 to 15 borewells. I have seen this 20 borewells in a 5-hectare land. This is how this is happening, because they are trying to drill a hole here. They will get some water. Next season it is dried out, so they will move. They will put another hole there, and they will try to extract water. This way, they are actually emptying out all aquifers, and this goes on. Why? Because water is, as Dr. Deshpande said, that the water, more water you get, more cash crops. And a bajra or jawar farmer, instead of that, if you have got a sugar cane, you are richer. And so this is how the quest for the water goes up. Now the same thing phenomena is now explained here. Look at this. When you had a dug well, the depth of the dug well was not more than 30-40 feet. Then we had bore well. It went up to 150 or 300. And later on the deep bore well. Deep bore well is sometimes, even 500 feet, or as in Bangalore, 1000 feet. This is how, it is going on. Look at the aquifer levels. So when you are using dug well, you are extracting water from a superficial or upper layer of the aquifers. But then you get into deeper and deeper. My next slides, will tell you how is replenishing. This gets replenished every year. This doesn't. This kind of a layer of aquifer get replenished. It might take sometimes 100 years. In fact, in Bangalore, they have hit upon the aquifers which are replenished something like in 500 years. And we are trying to empty out everything down there. We are trying to make everything dry there. Now you imagine that the groundwater is like a bank. What happens? We are trying to, earlier it was only naturally charging. Look at this, rainfall is very heavy, but actually water that goes into the groundwater is very small, not more than 15%. And the discharge was through the wells and rivers. That was manageable. The balance was always there. But this doesn't last forever. Shailaja would be interested here more. Where the recharging of the rivers, it's not only because of the surface water, it's also because of the groundwater, which are getting replenished in decades and centuries and millennia. And this is all water which actually makes the river flow round the year. If you just remember, many of us would remember that just 30 years back, Pune had rivers flowing with the flowing water throughout the year. And in today, there is only trickle that starts from March or February or March onwards. If we are lucky. Otherwise not. The same is situation in almost every city. Go to Yamuna, same thing is happening there. So this is the situation. In fact, Mithi River in Mumbai, same thing. It's not flowing throughout the year. Only when there is a heavy downpour, then it comes into the newspapers. Otherwise not. In Maharashtra, we have a very peculiar situation where the basalt rock is there everywhere. I am mentioning this here, because basalt rock is the one which is a non-porous rock and which is laid almost all over Maharashtra except Konkan and some area, Otherwise, if you go there. What makes this situation tricky is that this prevents recharge of groundwater. When there is a recharge happening from the heaven, from the rainfall, basalt prevents it. It's completely non-porous. It's impermeable. And this kind of a rock will tell you that despite of this, some kind of a recharge do take place because of the weathering of the rocks. That means, the rock becomes brittle. Sometimes the cracks develop. Because of this, the rainwater trickles down. Remember the word here, trickle. Even though there is a flood of water here on the surface, nothing goes beyond the basalt except some few drops. Through the cracks in the rock, the water may go down. These cracks are more visible here. And here is the stat. How much water rainfall reaches groundwater? By natural recharging, 15%. But in the concrete jungle like Pune and Mumbai and cities where there is a concrete roads, concrete buildings, 85% of the city is covered with concrete. When this kind of thing happens, the recharge in these cities takes place only 5%. Which are the obstacles? Obviously the buildings, concrete roads which are impermeable. Now this is also the reason why there is a flooding in every rainy season. And the reason is that we are not allowing any kind of water which is getting accumulated on the concrete roads and inside the societies. I have seen almost hundreds of societies where even their internal roads and open spaces are filled with concrete. I said, why there is no no soil left in the society? I said, no, in the rainy season there is too much of water. Our feet get muddy and dirty, so they want to have concrete over there. So making the case complete. That will not allow any water to trickle down. This is the modified picture which Dr. Kulkarni has shown you earlier. That what is the thing that makes the groundwater less and less every year. That on one side we are not allowing recharge. We are not allowing, we are just creating an obstacle. No. From here onwards, nothing will pass. So we are all of us are here responsible for that. And other side, we are extracting water from this layer, from dug well, from bore wells, from deep bore wells, and we are extracting water from such kind of a level where the recharging is happening for centuries. They, आपल्याकडे इस्टेट असते ना आई वडिलांची, which your grandfather's grandfather has earned and given you, like real estate or gold or something, and and in one generation एक असा सवाई मुलगा निघतो that he tries to sell off everything, all the gold and all the real estate, and just enjoys, because he can't earn, so he throws it off. All of us are doing that. Entire population of India, there we are all doing this. So we are trying to draw out all the water which is collected for centuries and millennia, and we are desperately trying to be completely poor, complete poor. And we are not realizing that also, we are just not realizing. We are getting broke, actually, that is the correct word. We are getting broke. And this is the same diagram earlier, and now what is happening is this groundwater bank, the natural recharging, I have kept it, same, assume that this is the same, but extraction has gone up, over extraction in fact. And the situation is this, that, the groundwater has gone down. Now, that's the reason, recharge is essential. There is a lobby amongst the experts, which say that, natural recharging is the best. I agree. Artificial recharging is not desired because it's very risky, because you can contaminate the water. And there is a limit to the artificial recharging, So there are two kind of filters. But when you have got a rig machine and which is trying to extract the blood from the body, you need to have to put the blood into the body again. You need to have blood transfusion. So artificial injection of water into the groundwater level, is nothing but a transfusion, which is essential, which has become essential to survive. Blood is not given daily, only when the life is in danger. But now we have come to this level that, we need to give artificial injections. So how the recharging can take place? Rooftop rainwater harvesting, surface rainwater harvesting, rainwater storage, and lastly, artificial recharge. The first three I think, for last 10-15 years, I think entire Pune city has been doing that. In Baner Pashant Link Road and that area, we have witnessed and we have been a part of that movement, where almost every society, has done this kind of a method, and our water levels are quite adequate. In my own society, our borewell used to go dry from February onwards, and we were dependent on only tankers. But we did this everything, and for last 5 years, we have not spent a single paise on water tanker. We are self-sufficient on groundwater as well as municipal supply. I'll just take a brief. This is not something new to anybody here, so I'll just go fast over this. This is the way you can collect the rainwater into the tanks. But there is a difference between a storage and a recharge. Obviously, recharge is better. You can go through this quickly. In fact, I don't want to go, this is quite long one. But I just want to highlight here that water available here will be throughout the year. In storage, there is a limitation. How much, big tank you can get? You can have a 1 lakh liter tank, but that will not be sufficient for more than a month, because we require something like 5 to 10,000 liters per day for a society. So that will not last, So there is a limit for the storage. In Mumbai, many societies have done this underground storage tank. Huge tanks have been built. Maybe, there the geology is different here, but in Pune, it's better that, you do the harvesting through the bore wells. Now, the recharging can be done through the shallow shafts and boreholes, through pits and trenches and continuous recharge trench. This is a classic example. In villages in outside Pune, in Pune itself also, like, Baner Pashant Hill, Shrote, I forgot his name first. Deepak Shrote and his team have done a huge work on this trenching of the hill, and that has, resulted into a huge groundwater level in Baner and Pashant area. These are the technicalities, how this should be done. On one side, there should be a complete obstruction on this side, and so it should be vertical and it should be slanting. So this is how it is to be done. These are the further details about this. How much should be the length and depth of the trenches and pits. Rainwater flow direction is also very important, and recharge trenches and pits to be taken on the higher side of the slope. But I'll talk something more about it. These are the trenches, and this kind of thing is more done outside Pune, on the countryside. But here we will be talking about something which is there in our societies, in urban area, because today's subject is urban groundwater. So let us talk about that. When you are, you can do the recharging through the dug well or through the bore wells also, like here. But you can do it through the trenches also. You can dug the trenches here on all sides of the society, and water can be directed to these trenches. The water which is falling on the roof, but don't allow this water from the sewage water, from the buildings, like, wash water, that should not be allowed here in the trenches. Now, there is this is a step-by-step guide for the rainwater harvesting in the societies. Imagine that this is the plot and there are 2 existing bore wells. I'm talking about, recharging through the bore wells. So these are the buildings, and these are the bore wells here, and maybe a garden here. And now suggested location for recharge pit. Now you can have a recharge pit here. Recharge pit is something which we'll talk a little more about it here, which is, built near the bore wells. And this from the buildings, you can collect the roof water through this kind of a piping, and then it is directed to the recharge pit. Now, what should be the dimensions of the recharge pit? Here are guidelines which are issued by the GSDA, and also there is a BIS standard. A BIS standard is something which should be followed, because which is a national standard, that the pit should be 2 meters wide There should be a 6-inch pipe in the borewell shaft, and this is how the filter design is there, which I think all of us are quite familiar with. The most important part is that this particular design is has got a BIS standard here, this particular design. So you can safely use it and follow it almost blindly, that there is a wire mesh around the pit here, and the pebbles and gravels and sand on the top, gravel in the middle, and pebbles on the edge. The size of the pebbles, gravels and sand also is defined in this BIS, and also the width of the pipe here also. And through this, the water which is drawn from the roof is released into this particular pit, and that goes into the bore well. This standard is designed for two particular aspects. One is the sediment level of the water. If there is a surface water, muddy water, which has got a lot of sediments, then it should be not only allowed to go through this filter, but also should be settled in a tank. If the sediment load of the inflow is very high, then first get the water stored in the tank, and only the supernatant, the flowing water, the top layer, which should be allowed through the filter. So it's a double way of ensuring that only the clean water is there. Here added is charcoal. Charcoal plays the very significant role, especially when the water is coming from the road, where there is contamination from the metals, diesel, petrol, and so many other obnoxious gases and poisonous substances. All those, most of those rather, gets absorbed into the coal. Coal has the best quality, again a natural substance almost, that it absorbs almost everything, poisonous thing into this thing, and that's why only the clean water that goes inside. So once this is completed, this looks like this. The recharge pit is there, and the same process can be followed for recharging of the dug well. Same, exactly same. You will find that the whole structure is there. And the dug well generally, you can, in fact, in my own society, I have taken in the water flowing from the road also. In my society, it's on the slope, so huge water comes after every rainfall. So I have, our society has created a kind of a pipeline which takes in this all water, gets released into this kind of a sedition tank, and then it goes into the filter and through to our bore well. So, this is a very safe kind of a structure. Now, these are the most important aspects, in having a rainwater harvesting structure. The location specific structure is something which I want to highlight. Filter is already talked about it. Storage capacity of the aquifer. I think since morning you have been listening to this kind of a talk about how the aquifer storage is there. Location specific structure is what, So let us look at this. Recharge into aquifer is most essential, and here I am trying to give you an example of a body where the blood flows all over the body. If you try to prick anywhere in the body, you will get blood. But it is though blood is there everywhere, but still you have got a circulatory system, veins, and when you want to give a injection, saline injection or glucose injection, you can't just insert it into any part of the body. You have to locate a vein, and through the vein only you can discharge it. Something similar is there. You have to have a aquifer level here, for recharging of into the aquifer. Now here is an example. Just imagine, that this is the aquifer. This is the actual map, taken from the Aquadams study, and let us see what happens. If you do a recharge into aquifer here, the recharge will be successful. But if you do have a bore well which is not going into the aquifer but outside it, this is the area which is outside, not in this aquifer or this aquifer, any of these, but just outside, a recharge will not be successful. And this is the point I think Dr. Kulkarni was mentioning since morning, that just what he used, pani ghuswa, zaminit, so so this is what it is, water cannot be injected into the ground just as it is anywhere. No, it has to be used in the aquifer. Then only it will be stored well, and intake also will be much more. If you try to do this here, in fact we have an example next to our society where they are trying to inject water through the rainwater harvesting, and they say that the water flows out from the bore well, water flows out, it's not going down. It's just why because they have struck it here, they didn't strike it in the aquifer, and because of this the water is not going down, it's coming out all the time. Now here the same concept now explained in this way. Again, you have seen that the aquifers are not in one level also. Sometimes they are deeper, sometimes they are connected, sometimes they are not connected. So here also, at the same height, probably if you do it here, it will be successful. But if it doesn't strike aquifer here, it will be unsuccessful. So what is the moral of the story? Moral of the story is that if you have to study aquifers there, you can't just blindly have a bore well and start putting water inside that. You can't do that. You must know, you must try to locate this one. And so here earlier it was said that anywhere but not everywhere. This is what is important. You can have it anywhere, but not everywhere. Because in my society we have got huge aquifers down below. But next to our society, the next society, they don't have aquifer, and that's why the water is flowing out. Ravi possibly may be recalling this, in our society, Vaidehi Saket society. Now from the artificial or kind of recharge processes, there is another big one: permeable surfaces for roads and pavements, which is a big topic being discussed at only activist level, scientist level, and this kind of thing. It's not reaching the people who are decision makers, policy makers, and implementers, because they just don't want to understand this. They just want to follow the road guidelines, have concrete roads where permeability is 0, and the water, which flows over the roads, it just goes down and creates floods somewhere. If we have this kind of permeable structures in place of roads, concrete roads, of course, engineers, road engineers and hydrogeologists, they will have to sit together to achieve both ends, because road engineers also have got a responsibility not to allow a seepage of water in underneath the road, because the moment water is accumulated underneath the road gets broken up. So both of them, they'll have to sit together and find a solution. But this is a gray area for most of us. The point here now is this, that demand for the water is increasing, but supply is constant. Our rainfall has not increased. Okay, in Pune, the population has gone up from 10 lakhs to 80 lakhs. So let the God, increase the rainfall for the Pune area. It's not happening. It's going to be the same. If you take 100 years or 1000 years average, it's not, varying much. Possibly it's going less many a times. So ultimately, you'll have to go for conservation of water, that whatever kind of a water supply we make to the people, if they don't use it conservatively, if they don't preserve the water, there will be a wastage of this. So use less water and reuse water. What can we do? Use less water, take shorter showers, fix dripping taps, use a watering can, turn off taps while brushing teeth, install a water saving device in your toilet. So many measures, I think all of us know that what kind of a thing. But I am sure very few of us, from this hall also, have been doing this, This is the reality. Save water while washing the car, use less water, or you can in fact only mop it, fix a dripping tap, reuse of water. This is now happening. I saw one society where the builder has created a structure where they has connected all the water connecting pipes all over this thing, and then he has tried to make the use of it. And the last slide here is this importance of groundwater connected to the ecology for the next speaker. That what is the connection? Connection is, you can see this, there is a trio of these two affecting the globe. So this is all what I wanted to talk about today.